OK, we move on now. Avon Fire and Rescue Service is to lose another 32 firefighters and at least one fire station. It's part of a £3 million package of cuts.
Well, the brigade has already saved around £7 million since the coalition government announced funding cuts 3 years ago. Unions say the latest savings will leave the service vulnerable. Sally Challoner reports.
When fire hits, everyone wants to know that the fire brigade will be there within minutes. But staffing that is expensive, especially at a time when all budgets are under huge pressure. Like others, Avon Fire Service has already had to cope with big cuts in government grants.
72 firefighter posts have already been lost due to budget cuts, and under the latest plans another 32 will go. And it's not just staff. This fire station at Speedwell will close and be amalgamated with Kingswood Fire Station 2 miles away.
At Kingswood today they were training as usual, despite the heat. But union leaders say the latest cuts bring staffing close to a point where lives will be put at risk.
Basically, the fire service is not a supply and demand industry. It's about risk. So a fire station that might have one call in a week is exactly as important as a station that might have 10 calls in a day. It's not a supply and demand, it's about risk. And people want to ring 999 and get a fire appliance there as quickly as possible.
As well as cutting staff and merging Speedwell and Kingswood stations, the service's ageing headquarters in the city centre will be replaced by a purpose-built one, possibly in Keynsham. A new station will also be built, somewhere on the Avon Ring Road. But there are likely to be more mergers and cuts in the future.
We've trimmed back in every level of middle and senior management. Our support staff have been trimmed back by approaching 30%. Every contract we've got in place has been reviewed. There is just nowhere left to look other than the frontline service.
No one from the government was able to talk to us today, but said in a statement,
"In the last decade, there's been a 40% reduction in call-outs, and deaths in the home have reached an all-time low. Yet expenditure and firefighter numbers have remained broadly the same."
In other words, the same life-saving service can be maintained while saving money. And that's where the two sides are likely to continue to disagree. Sally Challoner, BBC Points West, Bristol.
Well, it's not just Avon Fire and Rescue Service that's making cuts. Across the rest of our region, fire authorities are being forced to make difficult decisions. We're joined by our Home Affairs correspondent, Steve Brody. Steve, is Avon having to make the biggest cuts in the West?
Surprisingly not, Alex. Across the border in Devon and Somerset, there have been cuts of £5.5 million, which equates to a loss of 150 posts. And controversially, a town like Taunton going down to one full-time fire crew. In Dorset, the brigade there has been cutting senior staff and collaborating with neighbouring brigades. But even so, it's looking at cuts of £4 million over a whole period of years. An awful lot for such a small brigade.
What about Gloucestershire and Wiltshire as well?
Well, in Gloucestershire, there will be cuts of £1.3 million over the next 3 years. Now, the Fire Brigades Union says that equates to the loss of 40 posts, including 24 full-time firefighters. And in Wiltshire, the cuts are £1.8 million.
So why is this money being taken away?
Well, quite simply, deaths, as we have heard in Sally's package there, in the home are down, so are call-out numbers, and the government says they don't need so much money. It's as simple as that. It provides a half of all the income to fire brigades. The rest is made up from council taxpayers. Now, if the fire authorities don't want to put up their share of council tax, there is no alternative but to make cuts.
I think one of the things people might be thinking at home is, are they going to notice the difference?
Well, the answer, of course, is no, until a fire engine doesn't get to a fire on time and somebody dies. Now, if you talk to senior fire brigade staff, they will say they will cope. If you talk to the Fire Brigades Union, they say meddle with the service at your peril.
OK, Steve Brody, thanks very much.
There's power in a factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in a union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. Mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. In the cities and the farmland extra trenches full of mud.